How are you?
Great, yourself.
Uh, Ready for the weekend, as if, every day is different, right?
Indeed.
Hey guys,
Well, hey, Jason.
Ty, I think the issue was that that I sent out the new invite, but you used the old invite.
Gotcha. Okay.
But no worries, we're here.
Okay. Cool.
How you doing, Michael?
Hello, good evening. Good afternoon, whatever.
Where are you?
Geneva. It's a bit dark here.
Oh, nice.
It's really dark. The lights in this room are terrible.
Resembles
So I think
a bunker of some sort.
Like I'm in a cave or something.
So we're gonna have a small, intimate group today. There were only, I think there were 6 or 7 total responses, so a lot lower than the last one, but that's okay. I think it's just it's a good opportunity to have a more intimate discussion, and we'll have the recording available for everyone else as well. And as I said to Ty before the call, I mean, these meetings are nice, but I think the important thing is that we deliver the goods. So to the extent that these meetings can keep people informed that are interested, we're happy to have them. And the input's certainly helpful for us, but on another side, we kind of know what we need to do at this point, and we just need to put our heads down and go and do it. But psyched to have this forum and a chance to to get to know you guys better, and vice versa.
More of a village hall than a town hall.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. More like a little powwow, but we'll take it. I mean, we have a few slides. It's pretty light, so it shouldn't be a lot to go through. But Ty, do you want to maybe pull it up and we can talk through them?
Yeah.
Hey, John.
See.
Hey, man, nice to meet you.
You too. Thanks for joining.
Absolutely. Excited for it.
Where are you? What part of the world?
Redondo Beach, Los Angeles.
Nice.
Yeah.
Jason, I guess I, as a attendee, I can't share my screen, so looks like you might have to share your screen.
Okay. Let's see. So.
Cool. We can see it.
Cool. So you see the first slide?
Yep.
Cool. I can't figure out how to see you guys and see these slides, so I won't be able to see you. But I guess just Ty, if you see any hands go up, let me know. Otherwise, I mean, especially with such a small group, I would just speak. We want these to be interactive, so definitely don't feel like you need to muzzle yourself if you have questions or comments to add. But yeah, in terms of agenda, we just wanted to give kind of a high-level overview on where we're at as a community, walk through some of the work that we've now got underway, talk through, give you guys a little preview of some of the upcoming podcast episodes, and at the end, just leave plenty of time for Q&A to talk about anything that you guys want. So this slide, yeah, I mean, all we want to say with this slide is essentially that we feel like as a community we can get a lot done, but it's only just me and Ty, and so we're, we kind of view ourselves as a fulcrum where we're trying to enable the community and empower the community to go and do things that help the cause, and to the extent that we can facilitate, we're really happy to. If everyone were relying on us to do all the doing, I don't think we would get very far as a community. So we're still feeling our way with exactly how to best fulfill that. Daniel, some of the work that you've done in terms of trying to put some structure to the community organizers, and I think all that is really heading in a positive direction. It'll just take us, some reps and some cycles, and probably some mistakes along the way to get it right. But in spirit, that's what we're trying to do, is enable everybody to go and create create work on solutions for these problems together. Versus trying to be heroes over here with such a tiny team. We did put out a survey recently to members, which was great. This was the first kind of feedback beyond qualitative that that we've got in terms of how we're doing. You could argue that how many members subscribe is also feedback beyond qualitative for how we're doing, or how many people download the podcast. But it was great to to have some real feedback coming in from members in a consistent format. So we tracked NPS. We some interesting stats we saw. I mean, it's not really a surprise, but a lot of the people who signed up for membership initially didn't really care about what, it wasn't about getting access to more stuff. It was mostly just to kind of support the effort that people were already benefiting from. But one thing we thought was interesting was that overwhelmingly programs and events were where people felt like they wanted us to lean into the most in terms of expansion. And we were excited to hear that, because I think selfishly, if you asked us where we're most excited about leaning into as far as expansion, it would be programs and events as well. So it was good to see that alignment.
Sorry, was there any color on what drove that 80%? Did people explain what sort of programs and events they were after?
No, it was kind of a, I mean, Ty, you put together the survey, but basically, if my memory serves, it was like podcast, newsletter. Ty, what were the other choices? You remember?
Yeah, there were some kind of elaborated verbatims that we captured. A lot of it had to do with connecting fellow members. Obviously, MCJ kind of operates in this virtual Slack room. So I think there's a real appetite for people to the extent possible, just have connections, learn about other people, which is definitely how we're thinking about things.
Any other questions, or should we keep going? Okay, well, we'll keep going. But yeah, before we jump into the actual programming that we're starting to work on, I think, the main takeaways for us are that, we have this core group of people in the community that is, committed to addressing these problems and sees potential in this, platform, or whatever you want to call it, having the ability to assist in that in more impactful ways over time. And so now we're just starting to turn a corner and figuring out, now that we have this core group, I think, ideally over time, we want to grow the membership and grow the impact we're having for each member, and grow the number of, or the different aspects of their journey that we're touching over time. And I think in terms of near-term priorities, although growing the membership is nice, I think our most important goal in the short term is more focused around giving people a great experience and starting to, build a better experience for existing members than it is to grow the base. And we believe if we do that, then directionally, that's the best way to grow the base over time in a durable way.
Jason, if I can ask, how are you guys thinking about, like you mentioned, like the different phases of the climate journey? I'm kind of curious what your thoughts are on how to kind of like section those off into like the different categories, and then of course different industries that people might be going into.
Yeah, so I think one of the things that feels special about this community is the diversity of community in terms of backgrounds, geographies, functions, and also stages, right? I mean, some people are new to working on climate change, and other people have been doing it for 30 years within the community. So I think that's really great. It's also a challenge as it relates to what you're giving people, because you have many different kinds of people with many different sets of needs.
Yeah.
But for example, if you take, you could start to build personas of the different types of people that are in here, and then you could start to, over time, have a menu of programming that starts to address a wide range of personas over time. And if we have criteria for how to partner, for example, to deliver programming to a persona, it would be different groups that would be better served to deliver programming to different personas. But if we have a formula, we can roll out lots of that. And even if we're working with, member created events or events we're putting on with partners where the partner's doing most of the work, right? Then you could see many of these happening concurrently in a way that doesn't get to be messy. It's more like cable TV, right? Where this is the week's programming, and you're not going to go to everything. Like, you might just pick off one or two that are most interesting for you, or maybe this week there isn't anything that's interesting, and next week there are 3 things. But that's how we're thinking about it. And so, for example, if I am an aspiring founder, there might be an event to help me find a team with complementary skills and and a shared passion for an idea. If I am building a startup, there might be an event that can help me hire, or there might be an event that can help connect me with investors, or there might be an event that can help connect me with the big strategic partners who I might want to form commercial relationships with. If I am like we're doing, and this kind of gets into the next slide, we get into some of this, but we're all potential voters here in the US, we're potential voters in the US, or I mean, there is a healthy international component to the community as well. But if you just take the US voters, well, we have an election coming up, right? And there's a bunch of different races, and I don't really know how to know who the best climate candidates are, or what the most important races are. And I also don't know how to help these people with my time or my capital or both. We might offer an optional event if you want to learn more about that process and how to think about it. Or if you believe that a carbon price should happen, right? But you don't really know what you can do to help, or how to think about the different causes and organizations that are championing different carbon price proposals, and you want to know which one is most viable and which one has the most teeth, and what you can do to help once you figure that out. Like, we might do an event and bring in different people that are all focused on that from different angles, for example. So that's just off the top of my head, but those are a few.
Cool, super exciting.
Yeah, and then and some of them could be more general as well, like for example, Ty's been working on with one of the volunteers working on the member directory, right? So that everyone that gets onboarded, part of the onboarding is to have a director, have their information added to the directory about who they are and what they're looking to get out of the group, how they can be helpful, and what their occupation is, where they sit, as well as their areas of domain expertise. Well, if we have that directory, then you can envision better sorting if people want to know, I want to find someone with a certain type of expertise. Or there could be events as well, like similar to how you might go to a conference to network with people that have like-minded interests. We're experimenting with some tools that might facilitate some networking within the community as well.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Totally, yeah.
I can't see you guys, so I can't read facial expressions because I have these slides in front of me. So, but yeah, any other questions, or should we pop into some of the specific programming that we're starting to work on?
Let's pop. I'll stop making a thumbs up for the webcam because you can't see.
I can't see. Yeah. I'm a pretty visual guy too. So yeah. I don't know why I chose audio as the format to do all these interviews.
Yeah, gotta love the tech.
Yeah, but actually the secret is for the interviews, we use a service called Squadcast, and even though I can actually see the people I'm interviewing and vice versa, but only the audio records, so it's like a way to have your cake and eat it too. Yeah, and we're going to be experimenting with some video soon too, but we can talk about that. But Ty, do you want to walk through some of the? I would just frame these are not necessarily specific events that we're running with, although one of them is. These are more just like threads to pull on that we think that if we could put programming towards these themes, that it would be valuable based on what we've heard from the community. But obviously we want your thoughts and feedback on that as well. Ty, why don't you take it away?
Sure. Well, just sort of elaborating and unpacking some of what Jason mentioned, we're certainly working on quite a number of things right now. In the programming departments, we're really at the exploratory phase of just thinking about what different problems and themes we should initially focus on, such that, you know, these are meaty themes that sort of channel the community towards the problem of climate change. So Jason mentioned kind of the topic of politics and policy, and he mentioned a little bit about what Eliza Memser, Stuart Powell, and Parker Thomas have been diligently working on around connecting the community with candidates who are in really important races, both on the federal level and on the state level this election season. So that's one type of programming that we're exploring right now. Another one is looking at the opportunity around assembling teams. You know, we've seen that startups and different types of ventures are really integral as kind of mechanisms for combating climate change and bringing about you know, meaningful solutions. And we see MCJ as a way that we can really connect people from all different walks of life, all different domain expertise, and bringing them together in some way, shape, or form. So, you know, some ideas that we've been bouncing around is, you know, hey, how can we match these founders? You know, what would be a good venue, medium, et cetera. And then we're also kind of related to that, you know, we obviously speak with a number of different startups, early stage ventures through the podcast. And there's a number of folks in the community working at various stages of kind of maturity on their climate tech startups. So, you know, we're thinking about, you know, how can we raise visibility for them, whether it be for the purposes of helping them fundraise, helping them attract talent, or just simply bringing awareness to their mission. So if you have any ideas, thoughts, recommendations, please always feel free to DM Jason and me on Slack or drop us an email at info@myclimatejourney.co.
And I also just want to add, we didn't pick these three because these are the three we're going to focus on. You can envision a world once we're kind of fully functional and operational and we're into a rhythm and we've got a process and things like that where, you know, we could have dozens of these going on in parallel, but these are three that felt good to kind of cut our teeth on because they felt like needs that appealed to not everybody, but you know, a decent cross section of the community. And if we can do these well, then it will enable us to start getting into a rhythm of both doing more of these, but also doing them better over time. And we also don't think it's one size fits all. For example, you could pick any one of these themes and you could have dozens of different kinds of events. So, you know, for example, if it could be pitching, but specifically with investors, it could be pitching, but with strategics. It could be pitching, but more kind of like Job Expo style. So I think the audience matters, but also one might be a Shark Tank contest with judges. Like one might be, I don't know. I mean, I think the point is that, you know, just because we're doing an event in an area doesn't mean that members shouldn't also be trying out programming themselves if there's areas that they're excited about. We think more is better, and we think different angles are better, and it all furthers the learning and furthers the choice for the rest of the community.
Hmm. Yeah.
What do you guys think?
You can't have too many conversations.
Yeah, and you'll learn over time too. Like you might try a certain kind and realize that format's not for me, but this other format, you know, really is much more conducive to what I'm looking for. And one, that'll help you guys self-select into kinds of programming that you like over time. But then two, give us all that feedback, because we're gonna, I think especially early on, we'd rather than do like one or two big things, we'd rather do a bunch of little experiments to help us see what feels right and get our sea legs, and then figure out what to lean into over time. And I think feedback from the community will be super important as we're getting that learning together.
I think my experience to date in this and this type of thing is that the smaller the group, the better the conversations normally. Like when it's just 8 or 25 or some small number, you can actually have a proper conversation. So if you had more events, you'd probably end up with smaller groups each time, which might actually be helpful. I see some of the founder matching, like founders looking for co-founders. I see that going on in the Slack. I'm still relatively new to it, so I'm kind of just watching as what happens. And you can see the need there. People are looking out for somebody to co-found with. So that sounds like a really good avenue. Those are just 2 thoughts off the top of my head.
Thanks. And I think, if there were, I know there's only a handful of you guys on the call, but for the rest of the community who might, see this initial programming as it comes out, I think the message is, if there's a burning need that you see that you don't see listed here, don't think that, if it's not listed, it means it's not important to us, and therefore, you need to go somewhere else to fulfill it. Raise your hand and tell us about it, because I think if there's themes out there that, might only be applicable to a small percentage of the community, but are really valuable, I think that's valuable programming too. I think like the long tail is where it's at. We don't just need to do things that, appeal to the largest percentage of members. I think the things that appeal to a small percentage in a big way, there's plenty of room for that type of stuff as well. And so that's one set of things that we're working on. Is I would call it programming, like content. That could be podcasts, that could be panel discussions, that could be events. As we've been describing. The next slide that Ty's going to walk us through is more about like working on the machine itself. So there's a few initiatives that we've got going on to actually build the machine of MCJ. And that's another area where we'll be picking off things and prioritizing things that both will be tackling, and that potentially could be volunteer opportunities if there were some that captured the fancy of members who wanted to help. Ty, do you want to walk us through some of the things that we've got going on?
Yes. So we have several initiatives that we're working on right now. And the kind of broad intent behind them is really to improve the community, enhance the member experience, but with a keen eye to trying to foster engagement and new connections, because really that's one of the core areas of value that MCJ really hopes to deliver on. So we have a fairly robust list of things that we're working on presently. One big bucket, which the first 2 items on that graphic you can see kind of fall into, and Jason alluded to it earlier, is that we want members to be able to learn about other members, understand who they are, what their background is, what their domain expertise, but moreover, so that this can forge new connections and maybe even kind of be the seed to collaboration in some shape or form. So to that end, we're encouraging members, kind of new ones and folks that have been on the Slack for a while to just take a moment to update their Slack profile. It literally takes 30 seconds, add a picture, include a headline, just so that at first glance, when you're making comments in the discussion threads, people can say, oh, okay, so-and-so works for a policy group on decarbonization or such and such. Sort of the other side to that is that we're working on basically creating a member directory. I think Jason mentioned this earlier, and it's really building off kind of a V1 Airtable that we had. So I've been working on that recently, and it will be rolled out. It's actually kind of rolled out already, but I'm going to mention it in the newsletter. And it's basically just a form where people input their info, and it'll be sort of like a very rudimentary LinkedIn of sorts, I guess, that people can browse through the profiles of other members. Secondly, we're also working with a phenomenal group of volunteers, members, within the community. And I think we have a couple of them here, Eli and Daniel in the town hall. But they've been just a phenomenal group. I'll go into a little bit more detail on the next slide, but part of what they're working on is a welcome committee. This is like 5 or 6 volunteers that have taken upon themselves to reach out to new members who join the Slack, introduce themselves, help them navigate the various channels, give them tips on resources that might be available from the community, and just to kind of help them acclimate to what can be sort of a daunting space of around 800 people. As Jason mentioned, we've also been looking at this tool to kind of facilitate intimate connections between members. Sort of to Michael's point, sometimes closer, maybe more one-on-one venues might kind of engender more organic kind of discussion and things like that. So Cody Sims from Techstars recommended this service called Icebreaker, which can be best described as basically chat roulette in a way. So participants, they get arbitrarily connected via video for these 5-minute conversations. It kind of sounds daunting on the surface, but Jason and I did it on Wednesday with a group of strangers, and it was actually quite fun, and the discussions felt pretty organic. So hoping to roll that out probably the 2nd week of July, and yeah, I think it'll be fun. And then the final initiative I'll mention, again, it's being driven by the volunteer group, which we'll talk more about on the next slide, is channel engagement. So we've heard feedback from some folks that there's some channels that they may be active one day, but then the next week it can kind of just be a ghost town of sorts. So we're working with volunteers to basically assign a lead that kind of acts like a community manager, just to help ensure that there's kind of regular activity, there's pertinent content posted, maybe that channel community manager is eliciting responses from people that might not have been active. They have a pretty broad discretion around that, but yeah, that's kind of one of the ways that we're trying to foster a lot more dialogue and discourse within the Slack community. A lot of these certainly understaffed, so if there's any desire to help, DM me, drop me an email, and I'd be happy to chat about it some more.
Can I ask just two questions, or maybe one and an observation? Something I read very carefully in one of my favorite channels is introductions. And people just express themselves in their own words. It's kind of like, it's very much the sort of the antithesis of LinkedIn, which is kind of a little bit formal and stuffy often. It's kind of like, hey, this is me and this is why I'm here. And I find those really very insightful and very useful. And I've had connections from me outbound and inbound that have kind of kicked off that way, one of which has led to an advisory role. And so those are great. Is the Airtable, and maybe this is a dumb question, sorry, is the Airtable just basically a collection of those? I find those incredibly helpful. But the other thing is, because I've only been in the Slack, like, I don't know, 6 weeks or 8 weeks or something, I can't scroll up. It gives me this message about, 10,000 most. Yeah. So I can't, I would happily just scroll and read. but I can't. So those, I don't know if those are related. Is the Airtable and the directory and the introductions, you know what I mean? How does that work?
Yeah, I mean, I think the V1 of the Airtable probably, to your point, was meant to solve the limitations we have with Slack that, it only allows us to go back so far in the kind of discussion history. We're hoping that, the Airtable can be more over time. There is a component of, it should contain a lot of what a new member to the Slack communicates in introductions, but they can also specifically indicate what their domain expertise is. Is it in nonprofits, government, startups, etc. And also we try and tease out specifically what areas they're interested in, and in what ways can they help fellow members or the community as well. But it's meant to be complementary for sure.
Right. Does Slack have all the old messages, and we just have to write them a check, or do they draw you in? Do they go on?
Oh, the problem is that Slack's a great tool, but their business model is strictly an enterprise model, assuming everybody's an employee, and so any community that uses Slack inevitably runs into this problem where the community can't be priced like an enterprise because it's prohibitive. I think it's something, I forget the exact numbers, but it's like $8 or $10 per head, basically per month for the Slack membership. So, right now with our member model, we, that's about what we're charging members per month, which means 100% of that would be eaten up, but would also mean, we had a bunch of people in the Slack before we implemented the membership model. And when we did, we said it'd be members going forward, and we encouraged people to upgrade, but we didn't boot them out, which means there's a bunch of people in there that are, that aren't paying, which means we would be we're already dramatically in the red. We're not coming close to covering our costs. And that's without even factoring in salaries. I mean, I don't take a salary, and Ty, takes a fraction of what, what a salary would be. So we don't, I think the only way that we see for solving that is either switching at some point to a platform that is more conducive to communities, or potentially home growing one and building one ourselves, depending on what our needs are at that time. It doesn't feel like it's the most urgent thing for us to tackle, given that in every other way, Slack's working super well. But it's a real kick in the teeth. Like the not having the history sucks.
Yeah, they don't have a non-profit arm or anything, or are they open to pretty please kind of thing, or do we know we could lean on?
I mean we've tried 15 different
Right.
ways, including one of the members in our Slack was the former chief product officer at Slack, and she couldn't get it done. So. Yeah, if someone can make it happen, then that'd be great. I would never say never, but it's not something I'm spending any more time on, because it didn't seem like it was a good use of time.
So anyway, so the Slack people directory is just, I'm looking at my own profile. It's got like one or two short bits. It's like really brief. Yeah, that's what we're aiming for with the people directory. And the Airtable is much more substantial. It's kind of got a structure to it by the sound of it. It's
in some open-ended questions too. Yeah, to try to capture some of the magic of those introductions. So yeah, the Airtable would be essentially what you're asking for. And the bummer is that it's not, it's not like built into Slack so that you're seeing it all the time, but we'll have to just find ways to keep it top of mind for people, because it will have all the information that you're after.
Yep. Cool.
Yeah. Yeah. But longer term, at some point, we're going to need to get off of Slack. We know that. But already there's some sort of magic in this community that's working really well. That's a super hard thing to get. And so right when we're just starting to turn a corner and and try to kind of establish the community in a more enduring way, it doesn't feel like the right time to introduce all that risk and try to switch to something else that might not have any of the same magic.
Yeah, agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed.
But we're, it's something we continue to evaluate because we aren't happy with our current solution. But it's more just a question of timing, I would say. But at some point, and it could even be as soon as in the next few months, what we can do is, rather than switch, we can do something like, set up a new community with a group of 10 people or something, and just like do a little pilot and kick the tires on something without switching at all, so that there's no risk. Yeah. In fact, Ty, now that we're talking about it, that might be a fun thing to get, like a little volunteer working group to go and do that with 5 different community options and come back with a recommendation.
Yeah, kind of related to that, and Eli and Daniel, who I believe are on this call, can keep me honest here. But one of the topics that I raised was, just fellow members kind of keeping a backlog or letting me know of, kind of product features requests or existing kind of, points of frustration with Slack. I mean, we all know about the archive limitation, but kind of beyond that, just so that we have this backlog of, okay, in an ideal, community, digital community, what features would it have? And that just kind of gives us a evolving blueprint of what we might build or switch to at some point.
I mean, I'm not saying this is an appropriate solution, but I've got a startup I'm co-founding. We're using Basecamp just to organize ourselves. And a nice thing about that, I'm not saying it's an equivalent to Slack, but it has some of the sort of overlapping features. But the nice thing there is that the pricing policy, when you go to the paid tier, is $100 a month, irrespective of the numbers of people. Yeah. So, there's a market out there for SaaS stuff that doesn't price per head.
There's a lot of people, communities that like ours, that have left Slack. It seems like the 2 places that I've heard that they've gone most frequently, there's one called Discord, which was built for gamers, but has a lot of the Slack functionality without the limitations on history for the free tier. And the other one, actually the director of community for the other one is in the Slack room. That's one called Geneva, which is a new app for groups, clubs, and communities. I have not had a chance to evaluate Geneva, but I've heard from a few other communities similar to MCJ that it's working for them quite well.
That's Geneva, like the city where I happen to live.
Exactly. Exactly. Yep. Okay. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe the founders are from there or something.
But all the other names were taken.
Yeah. So that I would actually, Ty, that'd be a cool thing to get a little SWAT team on is doing an evaluation. People that are familiar with MCJ Slack, who know how it's working and what makes it special. If we wanted to, point them at 3 or 4 or 5 other potential alternatives to Slack, and then do an evaluation and come back with a recommendation, I'd be super interested in that information if anyone was excited about that type of thing.
Yeah, no, that sounds like a good idea.
Yeah, because I want to get off Slack. But I just, we just need a viable alternative, and to get to the place where we need where we have a viable alternative, there's a bunch of cycles involved, and in the short term, we're just feeling at capacity.
Yeah, it also goes back to something you said a little while ago, which was rather than just kind of bulk up on members, let's iterate a little bit with what is already quite a substantial membership list before you start, spin things up with that population before you start trying to expand substantially. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's a good segue, because our next slide on the community organizers, we pretty much have the exact same philosophy where, we've got this initial group of 22, they're super eager and excited. And I'd say, some are neck deep in projects and are fully booked. Others of them are kind of waiting in the wings, ready to be plugged into something. But there's, I think there's a varying set of needs from that community in terms of some of them want, full autonomy. Others of them want more handholding and guidance. So we're still kind of getting our sea legs with, the right model for how to engage with volunteers in the community that will be fulfilling for them and effective for the community. So rather than grow that group in the short term, what we want to do is figure out how to make that group happy and productive, and well integrated into the broader MCJ efforts. And at some point, I'd love to see that kind of volunteer core expanding, but we want to get our sea legs first for much the same reasons. Yeah, any of the organizers on the call have any thoughts that you guys want to share on that topic, or any color or input?
Anyone awake?
I'm here, not particularly.
I'm awake, but 5 o'clock on a Friday is starting to fade.
I think if anybody on the call, one of the roles I've taken in the organizers group is just if people are interested in adding events. It's kind of hard to navigate the entire MCJ ecosystem and to know if your event idea is like already something that people are working on or if it's something useful. So if you want to bounce any ideas off of me, feel free. And I can kind of help people understand all the events going on and see if there are particular people who maybe you don't want to take all the responsibility yourself to add an event. So I can connect you with other people who are interested, and also give you like tools and flows that we use for the community call or for study group or for other events to make it easier for you.
Any other questions or comments on the community organizers, or should we go on to a little peek at the podcast roadmap?
And then maybe it's worth mentioning the group is not meant to be closed in any way. Like there is the set number of people, but that was just like randomly who raised their hand like a month ago. So if anybody wants to be involved, I think maybe Ty is the best person to message, but just want to make clear that it's like incredibly open. And if anybody wants to jump in, we have plenty of projects to use more hands.
Based on Michael's comments, perhaps you've raised your hand on the come join the volunteer group.
Raising his hand for him.
Look at that. Yeah, Daniel, you get his hands, and Eli, you get his feet.
I'll get the picks and shovels.
I volunteer to go over to Lake Geneva and sit there for a drink and discuss the idea. Bye.
Well, Daniel, didn't you also organize the first ever in-person MCJ meetup?
No, that was a different Daniel, whose last name also I'm spacing on. But I went to that event in New York, which was in January, I think.
Back when people were still allowed to see each other.
Exactly.
Yeah, but that point, Eli, about being open, I think, Ty and I actually, we had some back and forth on that yesterday, because I think I think in spirit, we definitely wanted to be inclusive for sure. I think the thing that we weren't sure if we were hearing from the last community organizers meeting was just that if we add more people in before we get our act together with process and structure, that potentially it could make a mess. So we would love to get more people in, but we just kind of look to you guys to tell us when you're ready and when you need a breather to to make sure that the house is in order. But in spirit, I think absolutely the open is what feels good to me. We just don't want to overwhelm you guys.
Yeah, I'm with you on the same page. I think if people are excited to get involved, we will figure out a way. But we are intentionally not adding all 800 people in the Slack to that.
Cool. So this is just a preview of some of the podcast episodes. I don't think we've ever given a preview in this way before. So this little group like this, maybe we just have an inflated sense of MCJ importance, but this feels special. This is like a big reveal. But we have Katie Ray from The Engine is coming on, the CEO of Impossible Foods, Philip Ben, Congressman Kasten from Illinois, Professor Rebecca Henderson, who's written a bunch of books on climate risk and sustainability, former governor of Tennessee, Governor Bredesen, and Maggie Thomas, who wrote a bunch of the climate policy materials for Governor Inslee and then for Senator Warren. With one a week, there's no, it's very hard to cover all the topics we want to cover.
Just out of interest, is it getting progressively ever easier to get a kind of a yes from people, you invite?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think the slider, if you will, over time is that there's more and more inbound and a higher caliber of inbound. And to the extent that we're doing outreach, I think it is typically because it's a situation where we're going for someone kind of a tier up than what we're ready for. And I think what we're ready for continues to kind of grow. So I feel good that if we keep doing what we're doing, we'll be able to get to anyone that we want. But at the same time, I don't want to just have it be something where it's just like luminaries. I find there's a lot of, because it's about learning. And so, some of the less known, less discovered people, but that are extremely knowledgeable and neck deep in doing the work bring some of the best learning and perspectives to the table. Plus those voices are, voices that should be elevated as well, so that it's not the same handful of people hogging all the limelight. But that's one of the reasons I'm so excited, for example, about this kind of climate tech startup initiative that we're considering is that if we did that, let's say it's video pitches and some Q&A and they're like 5-minute micro podcasts, right? Instead of 1 hour long form ones. Well, all of a sudden we can highlight tons of, 3 people and a dog through A-round type of companies from all different sectors that wouldn't probably make the cut today to be on the once a week MCJ, but we start building a library of these people and giving them visibility and a chance to talk about the key hires they need to make, what kind of, financing rounds they're trying to raise, what kind of partnerships they're after, et cetera, which, as we build that library becomes very valuable to aspiring founders, to aspiring employees of these companies, to potential commercial partners and to investors, but then it helps the overall innovation community as well. And if that worked, you could see us at some point doing the same thing for the nonprofit sector as well. Yeah, what do you guys think?
I find the audio form, whether it, supplemented with a video potentially, but just listening to a conversation, I think maybe this is common. I just find it a very easy way, very intuitive way to absorb someone's story rather than reading it. So whether these are, I'm not sure if this is what you're saying. It's late here, so I'm getting a little bit tired. But the library that I think you're talking about, where you can actually, we could have that available to all of us, and that would be stuff that you could consult, you could learn from. That would be really useful. It's not full on podcasts, but
no, it would be like picture like a 2-minute video pitch with one single slide, and then 3 minutes of Q&A from me. Yeah. Just almost like imagine being able to sort and drill in on food and ag, or drill in on energy, or drill in on advanced nuclear, or drill in on storage, or geothermal, or whatever it is, micromobility, or whatever it is, and then see, here's 10 companies that are in the space, and here's little 5-minute snippets from each one of them, so I can figure out what's going on in the space and which companies I think might have the most interesting approach, so I can go track them down. Yeah, and that another thing I like about that is that yeah, maybe like with those founders that don't have any money, maybe if they get selected, in addition to giving them free visibility, we give them a free membership, you know, as a way to just like you know, help out the you know, we don't want to exclude people because they don't have means, and but we also, it's a slippery slope, and the next thing you know, like, you know, everyone's ducking and dodging and finding loopholes, and nobody's paying, which means we can't keep doing what we're doing. So we're still kind of thinking through the right philosophy there, but I felt bad that I felt like these young startups are underrepresented on the pod, but I don't necessarily think the main pod with the once a week format is the right format to represent them more. You know, if I choose innovation bullets, I want it to be, you know, the CEO of Shopify. I want it to be, you know, Elon Musk. But all these startups, like, how are we sharing those stories? Because it's important for them, and it's important for, you know, for the movement. So that's what kind of led me to think about, well, maybe these micro pods would be a way to cover a lot more ground. You know, that's like effort light, I would say.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that would be for members. Yeah, that would be a way to make membership more valuable, and it would help pick up the climate startup community as well. And then some of our programming, like, you can imagine one day having a formal demo day that, instead of this kind of evergreen demo day that I'm describing, would actually be a single day, and it would be a lot more interactive, maybe with the goal of connecting these companies with investors, or connecting them with new hires, or connecting with them with commercial partners. So we do think there's a role for that more interactivity as well, but we feel like this library model is one that we're best equipped to do as the next incremental step from a resource standpoint, and because it's most similar to what we've already been doing. Yeah, but one day we'd like to have an events team.
Hey, Jason, so if I'm hearing you right, are you suggesting that for the member section, these little micro interviews would be part of, say, a company or a member's profile, where it's a short interview with you, and then other members can, and then it's sorted or indexed appropriately? No. Okay.
No, I'm suggesting that the same way we have the MCJ and we have all the episodes, and then we have some bonus episodes, but you see all the episodes on the website. This would be essentially a bonus series of climate tech startups that would be only accessible to members, and we would grow the library of these little snippets over time, so that there'd be more and more founders and CEOs of startups sharing their stories in this library, the same way that we have a podcast library.
Okay.
Yeah, but that it would be only accessible to members as a, you know, as a benefit of membership.
Yeah, I can imagine some value being, or perceived value in, if I'm starting a company and have a 2 to 5 to 10 minute interview with you that I can then share with, say, investors, or pitch with other community members. That seems like something that I would sign up for the premium version for.
You mean having your story shared?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, I wasn't really thinking of it that way. I actually like the idea of, and this is my initial thinking. I'm certainly open to feedback and considering other paths, but of curating so that we, you know, because we don't have a lot of time to work with these companies in the way that an accelerator would. So we would actually go through curating and trying to surface quality, and showcase the ones that will show well and represent climate tech well, and represent us well, so that people that want to get to undiscovered gems can go here to tune in. But it's, you know, similar to if I was an associate at a venture firm taking deals to partners, you know, like trying to find the good ones, versus like people being able to buy their way onto the show. But actually flipping it the other way, if you get selected to come on, in addition to getting the free visibility, my thought was, let's give them a free year of membership as well, so that they don't have to pay, because presumably they don't have the they might be working without a salary, for example.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that totally makes sense from a quality control perspective. And I wonder if, I wonder if that episode could then be shared as like a long form version of a pitch deck or something, an alternative to the pitch deck. Okay, cool. That makes sense.
I'm just trying to get back to the Zoom so that I can see you guys. Yeah, there we go.
Ah, there
Cool.
you
Yeah,
are.
because we were done with the slides anyways. Yeah, and but that doesn't mean, by the way, that there aren't other things that we can do to help the startups within the community. I think we absolutely should. I don't think that this content library would necessarily be that, although I think there'd be some overlap, but I think we should be doing programming for those startups, for example, like mastermind groups is something that I've thought about in the past. Do we want to group startups with a peer group of 4 or 5 other startups, let's say, and give them a peer group within MCJ of people that are on the journey together, so they can hold each other accountable and have objective feedback along the way from a trusted group of fellow journeymen and women. That kind of thing. I think we should do more of that. Yeah, I don't know, like the same way the main pod, like, we want to surface the people that people really want to hear from. I was thinking the same thing, but for these early stage startups.
Do we have any early stage startup founders with us today here who would have a view on that?
I'm an early stage founder and excited to see where all this goes. Also, there's like the Idea Jam happening next week, which Nicolo and Candace are organizing, which I'm excited for. But yeah, I think all of these initiatives sound super cool and excited to see what comes of it.
Awesome. Yeah, and we're, I think one area we're still wrestling a little bit is as we start to bring some of our own initiatives forward and there's other initiatives going on, in my mind, they should absolutely coexist, and we want more of our own stuff and we want more community stuff. I think the thing we don't exactly know yet is how to collaborate, like how to support the community initiatives, but also stay out of the way. But we don't want the message to be that our stuff has priority. It doesn't have priority. I think it's just more choices. I think they blend super well. And I think, I don't know, at least for me as a founder, like there's no lack of, or like there's no too many resources available. And it's really exciting to be able to build, like we've had the MCJ community be such a huge part of our company already, whether it's like having our events, where lots of people in the community come to, or having, like there's so many incredible advisors in the community as well. So we will take all the resources that we could get. We're very happy to take them. Yeah, actually, but you're, go ahead. I have to hop off for a call that I got through an MCJ Slack meeting right now. So yeah, but Eli, you're an example though, because you've been so invested and you care so much and you've been giving so much to the community that I think, voices like yours really matter as we look at shaping the community going forward. So thank you for everything that you've been doing.
Yeah, I think we feel like we got the lucky side and we've gotten so much amazing, valuable resources from this whole thing. So
awesome.
Thank you back at you.
Well, go take your call. Have a good weekend.
You too. Nice to see you all again. Bye, everyone.
Did you guys have any other comments or other topics that you wanted to address while you've got us?
No, Jason, this is Siddharth here. Just saying I'm new to this. This is great. So looking forward to being more engaged, man.
Siddharth, welcome to the community. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Good to be here. Yep.
Where are you geographically?
Houston, Texas.
So you guys are a pandemic hotspot now, correct?
Oh, we are. Yes, yes, very much so, unfortunately.
Yeah, yeah. It's unfortunate that it seems like the wind's blowing one direction, and then where it's not blowing, people celebrate, and then the next thing you know, the wind's blowing back in their direction. And
Yeah,
yeah. Like Massachusetts was one of the worst. That's where I am, and then now we have, I think, the lowest or one of the lowest transmission rates in the country. But give it a month or two, I wouldn't be surprised at all if things get bad again.
Yeah. I think people are just becoming lax about masks and all that, just doing silly stuff, in my opinion. Just stay smart, stay safe. That's it.
My wife is an epidemiologist, and she's pretty concerned. We look at the stats, and the US has kind of done that again. We don't know state by state, but it's kind of concerning.
Not good. Hey, Niccolo, I see that you joined us. I'd love it if you want. You should give a plug for the event that you're working on.
Hey, yeah. So we're gonna do it on next Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern. I know that's not a great time for anyone in Europe, but we're gonna try next month to make it more convenient. But what we're doing is having this pitch event. I don't want to call it a competition because there's no money being awarded or there's no real judging happening. But this is a chance for people within the MCJ community to pitch their startup or pitch something they're working on. And we've already got Shail Khan and Monica Varun to be our kind of guest experts. So they'll kind of have the first crack at giving advice to the people making their pitch, and then we'll open it up to the community. Our goal is to have 3 pitches, try to keep it like a tight hour event, and then let it trickle over for possible interactions between the people who pitch and other people in the community that may want to connect with them. We've got a good positive reception too so far. We've got over 50 RSVPs, so it seems like people are really interested.
Niccolo, go ahead, Michael.
Are you able to record it for the benefit of others, or
yes,
is that problematic?
I don't know. Candace, who's my co-host on it, we've been discussing that. We're not 100% sure. We're leaning towards not recording it, just so that not to put the pressure on the people pitching that this is something that's going to live in perpetuity. But I could be convinced either way, I guess. I don't know if there's strong opinions or not on that. I know obviously you being in Europe would be helpful, but I don't know what the community standard here. I'm not sure what it is, to be honest.
You know what you might do is you could just at the outset you could say, does anyone have any concerns if we record it? And if no one has concerns, then record it. And if there's even one concern, then don't.
Yeah, maybe I'll reach out to the people that are pitching and ask them first and get their pulse. And if they're fine with it, then we're probably pretty safe to go ahead.
Don't put them on the spot at the beginning of the event. Ahead of time.
Yeah, let me just get you the release form so that all the content will be owned in perpetuity by MTV Network.
Sounds good.
And all the intellectual property discussed as well. Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. Well, Niccolo, I'm really excited that you're doing that. And that type of theme is one that's definitely on Ty and I's mind. So I plan on participating, and then it'd be great to talk through learnings with you, key learnings after that event, and then share some of the things that we're thinking about so that potentially we can collaborate on the next one.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, it's kind of crazy how that kind of came together from this last town hall, actually, where Candace just reached out to me and just was like, hey, let's talk about doing something to connect people with pitch ideas.
Yeah, and we also don't want to hijack it. Like if it ends up going well and you want to keep doing it, but you want to keep doing it, you and Candace, and you want me and Ty to go, do our own thing too. It's not competitive. I think more is better. So so don't feel like you need to work with us. But anyways, we should sync up on it. after and at least compare notes.
Sounds good. Yeah, I definitely not protective of it at all. So happy to have you co-opted or be involved in any way. So.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I mean, we'll feel our way with it. I just, yeah, I mean, I think as I was describing, maybe before you came on, I don't want our events to be viewed as a threat to others' events, or that like that area is spoken for or something like that. And I want to support people that are doing their own thing, but I also don't want to get in the way or take it over. So just tell me what you need from me along the way, and my feelings won't be hurt if you need something different than what I'm trying to provide.
Cool. Sounds good. Yes. We'll sync up afterwards.
Awesome. Well, I thought this was great. And I like the more intimate setting here. It was good to get to know you guys.
Likewise.
Yeah, to Michael's point,
Thanks,
a smaller
Jason.
community allows for more intimacy. Yeah, and productive
Yeah, it was
conversations.
more engaging. Exactly. It wasn't just us on a soapbox the whole time.
Yeah, I agree.
Ty, anything that we didn't cover that you wanted to flag, or should we let everyone go?
No, I think it was. I think we covered everything. It was great.
Yeah. Well, thank you all so much for coming and for all the positive energy you're putting into the community. I'm super excited about the future, and you guys are a big part of why. If we didn't have the people, we wouldn't have a community. So, so thank you guys so much for everything that you're doing to help us build this.
Yeah, thank you for leading the way.
Yep.
Awesome. Well,
Thanks,
have a
Jason,
good
Ty.
weekend.
Thanks, everyone.
See y'all.
Have a
Bye-bye.
good weekend, guys. Thank you.